Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today's episode is about how change comes when we take up space. This episode is going to be a little funky, so bear with me. In March 2026, I had the opportunity to attend and host a pop-up podcast booth at Anthropy, which is a conference in Cornwall in the UK, which brings together, quote, responsible leaders and organizations to inspire a more united future for the United Kingdom, unquote. They have a program for young people between the ages of 18 to 30 to attend the conference. So today I am featuring some of the emerging leaders who I had the pleasure of interviewing across 3 days in the Rainforest Biome at the Eden Project. I picked out clips, so I'm going to provide a bit of context between the clips so you know who you're listening to and what I'm speaking to them about, so you won't just go in blind. But the episode might feel a bit more disjointed than the usual conversations I have with my guests. So many amazing stories and some really important advice was shared throughout these conversations. So again, please stick around, and I hope you enjoyed this episode featuring the emerging leaders of Anthropy 2026. To kick us off with some amazing energy, this first clip comes from my friend Lauren Bennett, who I actually featured on an earlier episode of Be the Change podcast when I did a pop-up podcast studio at Amplify, which is the incredible International Women's Month Summit that Lauren founded at the University of Bath. I asked Lauren, what brings you joy? And this is what she shared with me.
Everything. I actually just love life. I think meeting people, and then when you meet one cool person, they've probably got a network of more cool people, and then you just meet more cool people, and then you're just filled with this abundance of just like joy and excitement. I think the work I'm doing is just beautiful, and I feel so privileged to do it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Do you feel just excited by life? I feel very excited by life.
Following on with this joy train, I asked the same question of Sammy, who is the founder of his own consulting firm, and Saeed, who is the CEO of Youth Leads UK. I'm keeping their intros intentionally short because both of them, if you know them, they both have crazy long lists of amazing things that they've done, but I absolutely loved their answers to this what brings them joy question, so I'm going to get straight to their answers.
Immediately, my mind has just got a chocolate. I don't know whether it's because it's lunchtime or...
Yep.
That's where I've immediately got to.
Mine went to a very different place. Mine went to work. And actually, not just the little bits, but actually having that opportunity to see the impact over the wider systematic lens of things and seeing how they change over time. Brings me joy, seeing the results.
On that then, you and your journey brings me joy, particularly because you were one of our very early Youth Leads UK participants, and now you're here. This is your second. You've been here more than I've been here, and that's what it's about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was on the Youth Leads program, I think 4 years ago now. So it was ages ago. I was the shy kid that did not even know whether he was being interviewed or whether this was an informal conversation. And yeah, that was kind of like my launch pad to kind of everything I do.
I also got to talk with Tammy, who is a youth activist for environmental well-being and equality causes, about what brings her joy. And I absolutely loved her answer, and it really resonated with me. So this is Tammy.
What brings me joy? There is so much that brings me joy. I'm one of those people that could rattle on about how grateful I am for every moment that I live. And I think for me, what truly brings me joy is being able to connect with people and just be able to see other people come out of their shell. It's something that people will tell me that I really help them with, is being able to be themselves, right? And not feel judged. So I love to be able to provide that space where people can just express themselves. And I always find that when people do express themselves, they're kind of just expressing another version of me. Like I'm meeting myself again and again in every person that I talk to. And that's kind of beautiful. So it brings me joy being able to connect so deeply and creatively with lots of different people.
I want to share literally all of these What Brings You Joy clips, but I have one more for you from Anita, who is the founder of Vox Populi Collective, and she's producing an app that gamifies politics. More info will be in the description of this episode. Definitely check it out. It's awesome. For now, this is what brings Anita joy.
What brings me joy? This is such a fun question. I was literally talking just now about the whimsy. Like, I enjoy doing things for the fun of it. I think that's why I believe in the gamification of politics in the first place. The idea of like some of the silly things that happen in our game, for example, if you think like
your friend is not being a good prime minister, you can like call a no confidence on the game. You can mess about and ask a friend if you aren't sure what type of policy should be created. And I think the fun perks of that translates like my life and how I do things. Like right now I've got like really sparkly, really fun nails because of the joy of it, the whimsy. I enjoy doing things for the fun of it. And I think when we take life at a level of doing things for the fun of it, rather than just trying to always meet some sort of structured, specific goal, it allows you to kind of unlock opportunities that you never would have in the first place. And that's how I see Voxel. But I did it in the middle of my gap year after I just finished being president of the Oxford Union, which is a very serious debating institution. And I was like, how do we bring some of the cool stuff that I got to experience there to a much more accessible, fun platform? And being able to run around, build the tech, and like build basically a mini game in what we're doing has very much been very fun and brings joy to me.
I also got to talk with people about their journeys into their careers and the work they're doing now. And I really loved this clip from my conversation with Jake, who is a freelance sustainability guide. And it's such a cool position, and he's had some amazing experiences. This is what Jake shared with me about how he got started and what led him to this career.
Oh, inspired me to get started. Well, I'm a natural science kind of person by background. Like I've always been like deeply inspired by nature, watching all the David Attenborough documentaries, and it was like my life's mission to go study zoology, which is study of the natural world. Went and did that. That was over like 10 years ago now. And while I was there, I remember doing some modules on climate change and doing modules on like wider kind of environmental cycles. And I sort of realized this bigger picture rather than just wildlife, this bigger picture challenge we're facing. And I think I really resonated as well with like the importance of behavior change and inspiring people. It's going to take the sum of all our parts. So it was from that I kind of transitioned to looking for an opportunity in sustainability, as we call it. After, some time looking, opportunity was given to me to go into a graduate sustainability role at Falmouth University. And to be honest, it's just been that I owe all my learning up until this point to that, just learning on the role about all these range of different things. But that's kind of the journey to it.
This next clip comes from Lanray, who is a friend of mine and an incredible designer. I asked Lanray how he got involved with art, design, and working in the creative industry in general. And this is what Lanray shared with me.
I always say it's a bit of a somber story because my mum died when I was 7, and I was later placed into foster care. And when you're in foster care, at least in the local authority I was in, they were like, maybe it was because they wanted me to move to my uncle's house and they were just trying to entice me, but they was like, oh, what do you want? We'll buy you anything. And us being children, were 9 and 10 or 9, 11, I asked for a laptop and my brother asked for an Xbox. So we both got a laptop and Xbox combo. This was like back in 2012, so they weren't the best. They're not the best things right now. But so in my spare time, I was either hacking something, not literally, but just playing around with code and stuff on my laptop, trying to just see what I can create for free because things are expensive. And then later coding became web design. So I started building websites when I was like 9 or 10. They looked, I'm trying not to swear, but they looked so bad. Like if I was to show that to my boss, he'd fire me like on the spot. But they looked so bad. And I'm not surprised. I was nine. And obviously, knowing that, I was like, okay, you can code a website, but you need to know how to make it look good. And that's when I started learning how to design. And then web design turned into design and photography and all of that creative stuff. And it just basically went from there. And just from a kid who lost his mum to got a laptop because social services wanted to distract him with something. And it kind of basically started my career.
I will link Lanray's socials in the description of this episode so you can check out his work and connect with him because he's awesome. He's doing amazing things. I also talked with Savannah, who is the Youth Engagement Officer at Connect Futures. In her role, she does a lot of research and training about media literacy and misinformation, and she also explores how we talk with young people about topics like misogyny, racism, and more. I asked Savannah to walk me through what inspired her to get involved with this work, and this is a clip from our conversation.
That's a heavy question. I feel like it's because as a teenager, I would say that I was probably victim, like a lot of young people, to disinformation and like the rabbit holes you can find yourself down. And I think it's especially to do with like being very passionate and wanting to understand the world better, but also algorithms not being well equipped to push us towards what's positive and good and critical. And so, I got the chance to go to university, study politics, actually engage with the texts that I didn't have access to before, and realize a lot of the stuff I was exposed to was lies. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like, why did I have to come to university, do politics, do this course, and learn how to critically think? That's really bad. And so it was like, how can we make this more accessible to everyone? And it's obviously young people because it's preventative, but also it is adults as well who would be surprised how little they critically engage with media, things like that. Even AI, like, people keep asking me about it, and I'm like, it's not young people sending me weird AI snop. It's adults of the time. So yeah.
I also talked with Connor, who is the CEO of Spark UK, and he is making a repeat appearance on Be the Change podcast now, because I first interviewed Connor years ago on Be the Change podcast. Spark UK is the UK's leading youth-led mental health charity, and I got to talk with Connor about what made him get started with his charity.
Yeah, so it was actually boredom. So when I first went to secondary school, I was looking for something to do, and this opportunity to become a mental health ambassador came about. So I was like, great, let's try that. Expected nothing to happen. And then over time, we sort of did assemblies within our school, and then funding got cut, COVID happened, and me and some friends were ranting, and we said, the mental health system's terrible, education isn't proper, it's all old, out-of-date BBC 3 documentaries. So we said, let's just try doing something ourselves. Expected nothing to happen. Here we are 6 years later. Yeah.
6 years is crazy.
I know, it's crazy.
Now we are going to dive into the signature Be the Change podcast question portion of this episode. I asked all of the people who I got to interview this question. So these are some of the highlight answers. But again, I wish I could share literally all of this with you. So I asked my guests, what advice would you like to share with young people who might want to get started making change? And I got so many great clips. This first piece of advice is from Andrew, who is the company director of Emoco, which is a movement for a culture of well-being in education.
It's a big question. I would say the starting point is to be really clear on your sense of purpose and your why. Why are you doing it? So for me, that was connecting with my lived experience, having a vision of what you want to go for. So I knew I wanted to see a culture of well-being where, nobody was experiencing toxic, unproductive stress. So I had the vision, and then what I did, and this was the catalyst that really took it from being an idea in my head to making a tangible impact, was I mapped out everybody I needed to get on board. My favourite saying is that systems are made up of people and change moves at the speed of trust. No one can do things in isolation. Emoco was created by an intergenerational working party where I worked with former head teachers and senior leaders. We put it together, and we got ownership. It wasn't just my idea. The schools felt it was their idea. Everybody felt it was their idea. They had ownership. They all wanted to see it through and see it succeed. So once you have your vision and your sense of purpose, do stakeholder mapping. Get your stakeholders around the table. Think about what makes them tick. What do they like? What do they fear? What are they thinking about? How can we make this something that we can all get behind? Because no one's going to make a difference shouting into a silo. We have to collaborate intergenerationally, but at the same time, that can feel daunting, particularly with adults, and it's knowing that you have a right to be in that space. Your lived experience qualifies you. You bring a piece to the puzzle. I say this with all our Emoco co-production groups. You have a piece of the puzzle. The other stakeholders have one too. None of you are going to put the full image together on your own, but together you will create a full, beautiful image that will illuminate the path to change. So that's what I'd recommend.
This next clip comes from a conversation with Patty, who is also a friend of mine, as well as the campaigns director at FlipGen and a podcast host on Be the Change Media Network. He has a podcast called Now We're Really Talking. FlipGen is a youth-led digital well-being organization aimed at empowering young people to form a better relationship with the digital world through education and conversation. I talked with Patty about his advice for young people who might want to get started making change, and with so much of his work being about the digital world and being safer online, Patty's advice was right on brand with his work, and he talked about how you can use the digital world to make connections and create change. So here's Patty's clip.
I think the first thing and the hardest thing is like that first step of reaching out. And I think people forget what a platform you've got on social media. And it's never been easier to kind of spread a message that you want to on social media, even if you've got like 100 followers. Imagine standing in a room with 100 people. So I'd say you can make a stand and talk about what you want on social media, and you will find people who care about the same thing. And you're making a change at that point. But also just like, if you see a charity doing cool work or do something, or an organization, just reach out to them. Like organizations love it when you have young people reach out and want to get involved. It's like gold dust for charities. And even though you're going to get something out of it, they're getting something so important out of it as well. So I'd say take that first step and reach out, and never forget how big your platform is and the change that you can make just by sharing your thoughts on social media.
I also talked with Charlotte, who is a senior digital content officer at the Eden Project, so she felt right at home in the Rainforest Biome. And we talked about the Eden Project, Anthropy, creativity, her work in comms. We talked about a lot of things. I asked Charlotte to share her advice for young people who want to make change, and this is what she shared with me.
So for young people who are looking to sort of make change in the world and maybe in like their local community, I think really the most important thing is to really firstly understand what your skill set is. Like identify what are the areas that you can really hone in and become your niche. And I always say, like, for me, like creativity is like my superpower, because that is one thing that I can bring to the work that I do. And I know that not everyone naturally is creative, but other people may be more, interested in numbers, analytics. Like if you're interested in data, like that is an area that you can own and really become known for. And then you can start to like apply that to like the work and projects that you're doing. And also like think, if you can't find an opportunity to get involved with, sometimes you just have to create that opportunity yourself, and just be a little bit brave, be a little bit confident. And, if it feels like a risk, like just try it. Like maybe it will work out, maybe it won't, but what are you going to lose? It's relatively low cost to get involved with projects these days. Like you've got a phone, you've got social media, you can set up your own initiative on there, and just through that you can also learn new skills at the same time. And then when you come to like apply for jobs, you've got a great talking point already about something you've actually put into practice in the real world, and just keep developing those skills.
I love the advice that Charlotte shared about finding your superpower, and it's actually the perfect segue into this next clip, because this person has absolutely found and is using her superpower for lots of good. Delnaz is the founder of Do You Know What You Know, which is a media literacy initiative, and we actually got together and started working on the media literacy portion of Be the Change Media Academy a few months ago. So to put it simply, Delnaz rocks, and this is her advice about how to get started making change.
I would say maybe two things. I don't know what the second is yet, but it'll come to me. First thing, find someone who is also interested. We were just talking about this. It's really cool to have an idea and want to do something yourself, and you should, but don't limit yourself to that. Try to find partners or people to do it with you, or give you ideas, or just to chat with, to kind of share ideas. Because I know personally for me, Do You Know What You Know? I was thinking of, what should I do? Form an organization, blog. I want to do something about media literacy. But then whenever my friend Lauren mentioned that she was also interested, we just kind of got together, brainstormed, and because we're so different in many ways, it works out so well. But again, you can also end up doing something yourself and just have a mentor or a peer that you can talk to. So share your ideas. Don't be afraid to express them everywhere you go. You never know who you'll meet. And then the second one, take risks, 100%. I mean, for example, last summer, I did my first public speaking thing. I mean, I had done workshops before, but I had never given a speech in a lecture hall. And it was so scary. And I just did it, because I kept waiting for the perfect time. Oh, maybe I should gain this credential. Never going to come. Just do it. And if it sucks, that's okay too. It'll be better next time.
I also got to talk with Ines, who is working in all things community engagement and social sustainability. And this is her advice for young people who are looking to get started making change.
So follow your passion. Difficult because when you're young, you have a lot of passions. So in some ways, find your niche. And that's difficult. I'm struggling with that now. And I've been on my journey for like 5 years. But I think maybe speak with as many people as you can, because they will help you find that niche, that little nugget that you can pull on a little bit more, the thread. And then that can hopefully help you steer in some direction.
I have one more clip to share with you, and it is from my conversation with my friend Emma Redfern, who is the founder of Studio Self-Made and Lucky Founders. Lots of young people might feel nervous about getting started with a new project or getting involved in new opportunities. And this is Emma's advice for anyone who might be feeling that way.
So I can completely relate to that. Like having anxiety, like even speaking publicly would used to give me a panic attack. So I can totally relate to that. And it is so daunting when you see other people doing things and you think, I'm so far away from that. But I would say try and take small steps if you can. I always say get into your stretch zone as much as possible. So that's just outside your comfort zone, but not really too far where you're panicking and feeling really anxious. And the more you do that, the more you expand your comfort zone and the more you can experience joy in those things that you really want to do. So especially if you struggle with things like anxiety, I think just taking those small steps towards your goals and then celebrating those wins as well. So within the Calming Club, so the first business I set up, I have a range of cards that have techniques on, and one of them is called your emergency cookie jar. And the idea with that is to collect your wins, put them in this cookie jar, metaphorically or physically, and then you can revisit them when you're feeling anxious or nervous about taking that next step and see what you've done so far. So you can see that it's possible.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Be the Change podcast. I had so many great conversations at Anthropy, and there are so many more clips I'd like to share. This podcast has always been about amplifying the voices of young changemakers. So I am so grateful that I was able to connect with and speak with so many incredible emerging leaders at Anthropy. Thank you all so much for sharing your stories with me, for taking your time to share them, and for trusting me to share them on this platform. To those of you who have made it this far in this episode, I really appreciate you. I just have one more piece of advice. It's from me, and I promise it'll be quick. My advice to anyone listening, actually, no, I'm going to rephrase this. My challenge for anyone who's still listening is for you to please take up space. If you are invited to be in a room, even if you might feel intimidated or overwhelmed or like you don't belong there, you deserve to be there, and you need to take up that space. And if you weren't invited into a space, if you weren't invited to be in the room, ask for an invitation, because the worst thing they can say is no. The second option, which this is very much dependent on the situation, that is my disclaimer, show up anyway. Show up to the room. Again, the worst thing they can say is no. The worst thing they can do is kick you out, honestly. Again, very much dependent on the situation. And I'm putting a huge disclaimer there. I'm not encouraging you to do anything illegal here. But sometimes you can show up and you can get into the room and you can take up that space. Anthropy is a huge conference filled with very impressive movers and shakers from across the UK. And these incredible emerging leaders I spoke with grabbed the mic in sessions, spoke on panels, networked like crazy, and they took up space. You can do that too. You absolutely should do that too, because change comes when we take up space. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you would like to reach out to any of the guests included in this episode, please check out the links in the description. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave the podcast a rating and a comment, because it will help these stories to reach, educate, and inspire more people. And I would also love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.